Yeah, when I watched what you guys were doing, so I call that, when I relooked at DeFi, when I was at Bankers Trust, I had a bunch of direct phone lines, and I could choose which broker to use at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange or the Bond Future. I could choose which company to trade treasuries with. And they would give me better liquidity, and they might take me out for a steak dinner or take me to the Knicks on the floor. But I never got offered ownership in their company or the protocol. Yeah. And when I saw you guys in the DeFi Summer and some of the lending protocols saying, guess what? We'll give you an interest so you'll grow your crypto. That's the best way you explain lending markets. You get to grow your crypto, but you also get some of these extra tokens in this protocol that will also accrue value. That is a mind-blowing concept that you would have never seen in traditional finance, or probably impossible to do without a blockchain.
Or in economy. Imagine even taking a Uber ride. Each time you take a Uber ride, you get a small portion of Uber equity. Or eating at, let's say, drinking in a pub, or going out somewhere, or watching a sports game, you get part of like ownership of that sports club. So like all of this concept of like ownership it's what Web3 does very well is that it just like changes the way. So as a user, you become a stakeholder. So basically, because you use the products and the protocols, you have the kind of like a most skin in the game to decide like how they will be built, compared where, a traditional model where you have a company, stakeholders, investors, and investors are kind of like incentivized to create products that create more value for them. So they have like the monetary stake, but the user has not only kind of like, user has the stake of like using a good product. And then if you get like some sort of like discounts, ownerships, and additional like kind of like yield for that, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a whole new paradigm shift, and it's super exciting. And it's also all on the blockchain.
Yeah,
right?
And transparently. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like when you compare like decentralized finance to traditional finance, what amazes me like how transparent everything is. So if you go currently into the Aave protocol or any DeFi protocol out there, you see each and every transaction on the blockchain, every single second. So you see like what's the collateralization ratios on the Aave protocol, what kind of assets are borrowed, what kind of interest rates. You see like the historical data, so you can even quantify for the future. So these protocols are auditable by anyone every single second, which means that anyone can build better risk management tools as well, and because the data is accurate there. Compared, for example, financial crisis in 2008, it's very difficult to understand like what kind of exposures, for example, JPM had against Goldman, and Goldman against, let's say, Bank of America and whatnot. And so you have like this financial reporting, but it's not the same thing as you have like financial reporting on the whole state of the economy each and single second, which means that anyone can build better risk management tools any part of the world. And that's what's happening in the Aave protocol. We saw a proposal coming from a firm called Gauntlet, which does stress testing and risk management in the Web3, and they practically make it a proposal of changing risk parameters. And it's kind of like a decentralized way of building not just like better finance, more like efficient, but also like more risk-aware finance, which is good for everyone, especially for the users.
Yeah, the transparency cannot be overstated.
Yeah.
When I worked on Wall Street, the whole game was secrecy.
Exactly.
The whole game was a lack of information from your customers.
Yeah.
That's why we got paid millions of dollars a year. If you ever look at those phones in the movie Wall Street, they're these black phones, and I used to have two. I could talk on two phones at once, by the way. They have a they have a clicker in the middle of the phone. What's that for? It's to mute, so you cannot tell people information.
Exactly.
And we would do massive derivative trades, hundreds of millions of dollars in notional, between banks, and they were never reported to anyone. And that's why I think what Stani's referring to is in the financial crisis, when everything went wrong, the Fed comes in and says, okay, where's the risk? And everyone says,
no one knows.
We don't know.
Yeah.
It's all on a ISDA document that was signed off that's 8 pages long, or it's in a risk management system internally to the bank. But you literally have no idea what the risk is.
Exactly.
And then it starts getting ugly, as it did with Lehman and these other places. But our job was literally not to tell our customers information.
Exactly. And that's not possible in Web3 because like you see everything. And end of the day, what amazes me how these communities are managing risk. So all of these communities, they consist of developers. There might be some professionals there, but they're users that are using these protocols and practically making decisions on what kind of risk parameters to apply. And crypto is very volatile. It's volatile than anything else. And when these collaterals reduce in value, there's this kind of like a liquidations going on the different protocols, and they have been very resilient on what's happened this year in the big market drop and last year. So it's just showcases that you don't need to be a financial kind of like a advocate to actually build good protocols and risk-averse systems. You just need to have a group of people as a community, like using the product and deciding that, hey, what's good for the product, and that will work. We have like basically multiple protocols now in DeFi that just have amazing risk management, and I'm pretty sure when we look back into this thing, like we get inspired that you don't need to have like necessarily like similar backgrounds just modeling risk. You can just have people that are using and have a lot of like kind of like a stake in the system.
And it's been impressive because, like you said, it's almost like a public display of a stress test.
Yes,
that's been out there. And
yeah.
I was talking to Dan Moorhead of Pantera Capital, who was raising Bitcoin funds in 2013, who tried to buy $2 million of Bitcoin on CoinDesk and on Coinbase, and there were 4 employees, and he couldn't get it done. And he said, Brian, look at Bitcoin, for example. He said, for 13 years, it's been stress tested by every terrorist group, every government group, every CIA, FBI group in the world, and yet it's never had downtime. He said, you can't say that about any banking system in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't say that about Facebook and Google. They've all had downtime. And yet a network like Bitcoin has made it through that without breaking.
Yeah.
And again, Ethereum now, all the developers, all the protocols. And again, you're talking about big market moves. So Black Thursday last year, with this year when Bitcoin comes off 50%, now what happens? Do the stable coins stay stable? Do I get my lending securities back? And we're seeing these public displays of kind of a stress test, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of discussion. So if you see some sort of like a kind of like unwanted behavior, the communities will talk about it, publicly in the forums, in Twitter, and you quickly the communities react very quickly. And because it's a system where it's based on the communities, like it's very difficult to act against a protocol, and kind of because everyone is trying to achieve the very same goal. Of course, when things scale and you have more commercial actors going, the next question is how you keep the protocols somehow I would say like a friendly environments where people care about decentralization, financial inclusion. But that's the thing with the forking. If there's some sort of issues where the community members aren't, they don't see it as kind of beneficial for the protocol, they can always fork. And this risk is amazing because you can't fork JPM, you can't fork Bank of America. It's just it takes 50 years to get to the same level. But in DeFi, you can basically fork Aave, you can fork any protocol. And if you do it right way, you can get very quickly in the same spot. And that's something that also keeps us kind of active, how we ensure as a stakeholder, we build good protocols for people.
So you're a politician, not a CEO.
Well, I would say that I'm more of a builder. I don't like politics because it takes so much time, but politics is an important part. So decentralized finance is interesting because there's this component of building things, and then there's this component of governing things. I'm more of a builder. I like to build things and let other people to govern them. That's pretty much my vision. But also I like to, I have a saying in some of the things I build. So maybe I want to say, hey, I like what's happening, but my opinion is this. But I want to do it in a way that my social capital isn't saturating what's good for the protocol. So that's the thing. Even if you deploy things, for example, Vitalik created the Ethereum, founded it, and he's active there. The community is still, this kind of a social capital, you need to be careful because you need to ensure that you don't direct too much the whole community and let this kind of space and involvement there.